Well, good morning. Trying to put together some podcasts for the rest of Unit 4. I've been busy making some new slides. This first one's going to take 2 sessions, so I'll do the first bit and then stop and start again. So, change over time in biodiversity. So we've got 3 things to think about. These significant changes in Earth's geological history, so I'm going to start with a bit of geology. Then there's the evidence for that change and some discussion of what happens across time. And Ruby's just moved in. Okay, so this obviously is about evolution. Change in biodiversity is about evolution. So here's our friend Charles Darwin again, who came up with this modern theory that states that all living things, so everything's alive on this planet at present, we can trace the DNA back 4 billion years. The DNA has been here for 4 billion years. The life forms that have taken place in that time have changed enormously. Many species have obviously appeared, many others have become extinct. And there's the classic evidence for that has been fossils, biogeography, and then the physiology and biochemistry of living things as we became more adept to the science. And then, of course, now we've got DNA sequencing, and we'll talk about that a bit later. However, geology. Something you guys don't learn a lot about. You did a little bit in Year 8 science. You've probably done a little bit in humanities in Year 9. But we believe the Earth to be 4.6 billion years old. And you can see that lovely diagram there of the plates on our planet. We'll talk about those in a minute. And this is really important because for evolution to work in the manner in which it has, the planet needs to have been around a long, long time. And one of the major blocks to evolutionary discussions was Bishop Ussher's work back in the 1800s. He was Bishop of Belfast or Dublin or somewhere, and he took the Bible as his scientific text, and he traced back in time using basically 20 to 25 years of a generation, and worked out that the planet was created, I think it was the 23rd of October or something, 4000 BC. So he had the planet sort of 6,000 years old according to him. Of course that doesn't work, but it held up things for a long time. But geology has come a long way and started doing a lot of work. And we now know that our planet has a molten inner core, rock hard inner core with molten layers above it. And those molten layers set up these massive convection currents. And those convection currents cause the crust that we live on to move apart and realign itself quite regularly. So there was one point in time when there was just one landmass and most of the planet was ocean. So Pangaea, it started to break up about 200 million years ago, and it broke up into 2 sections called Laurasia and Gondwana. And Laurasia was basically the northern hemisphere and Gondwana was the southern hemisphere. And we're on an ancient Gondwanan continent. So as you can see from this diagram, because there's convection currents, you get stresses like this where the mid-oceanic ridge develops. There's a huge one down the Atlantic. But you also get these other trenches where these things go under. So we see one of these underneath South America on that coastal side, on western coast. Galapagos Islands actually moving towards South America. They're closing the gap as they get carried by the plate that they're sitting on. If we go back up, they're on this Nascar plate. And so they're slowly moving towards South America, around here somewhere. These things are all on the move all the time. And so it causes huge change. We talk about eras, periods, and epochs of time. We're currently living in the most recent, the Holocene. In fact, there's a new epoch being named after us. But we have these Precambrian, which is broken up into 3 sections. We'll talk about those in a minute. And the Panozoic, this major other eons. There's 2 major eons. Life commences down here, way back in the Precambrian. And we'll talk a bit more about it in a minute. And then there's all these different periods, eras and periods and epochs through time. And we'll talk about some of the significant bits and pieces of those. So the Precambrian eon is that early part of the planet. It's pretty tough time. Lots of volcanic activity, no real atmosphere. I suppose very Martian in some ways. if you want to sort of compare it to something we do know. And unfortunately, there's very little fossil material from this period of time, because most of the fossils are soft-bodied. These things here are stromatolites. Actually, this is a photograph from Western Australia, near the Pilbara. These things are still alive and found on the planet, basically in that area. Not too many of them left, but they date way back. Their ancestors date way back to that 4.6 billion years. And they are soft-bodied, so they don't form particularly good fossils. That's one of the problems of this sort of work. But there's a number of significant events during the Precambrian. So life begins. It was in the Hadean. First of all, you get some photosynthetic organisms. So we're talking about single-celled and small multi-cell things that are finally photosynthesizing about 3.5 billion years ago, which starts to change the planet. And that's a really important event, because we start to have a rise in the amount of oxygen against carbon dioxide in the planet. And about 2.4 billion years ago, oxygen's rising enough to start other life forms to start to appear. So the first eukaryotes then appear about 1.8 billion years ago. And 1.7 billion years ago, we're starting to see multicellular organisms that are starting to become organised. So before then, it's all pretty simple stuff, and as you imagine, that's pretty hard to find any sort of fossil record. Although I will show you some nice little fossils from Flinders Ranges in class. The Paleozoic era comes after this, and we start to see some interesting stuff going on. So the first land plants arise. So there's about 500 million years ago, we're getting land plants. They're not flowering, they're just conifers and ferns, that sort of stuff. Lots of mosses, massive mosses at that point in time. Liverworts, huge plants that are pretty simple. First amphibians arise. So animals, because it's now plants on land, we're seeing a development of an ecosystem on land. And so the amphibians start to come out of the water and enter this land environment and find new niches. And we also see the first reptiles arising around now. So what I have written, what I wrote there I was going to tell you about. Oh yeah, okay. There's sudden diversity appears in the animals, and I told you that anyway, didn't I? And then there's the Mesozoic, and of course the Mesozoic is marked by the appearance of these things, these dinosaurs. So the dinosaurs arise from those early reptiles. So amphibians split to reptiles and mammals, and the reptiles obviously develop into the massive dinosaurs for a period of time, and we plod along the background and eventually appear as humans at some point, but that's a long way ahead. So about 65 million years ago, around the time that the granite that now lies on Mount Erin, Mount Martha became apparent in this area, we had dinosaurs across the planet. At the end of their era, there was this massive extinction event which wiped out 7% of life. But while the dinosaurs were around, there's also the rise of many other things. Mammals, birds. Birds are dinosaurs. Birds arose from the dinosaurs, hence the great similarities between reptiles and birds. And the early flowering plants, some really early ones, started to appear, which of course then started to support massive insects, and they were really large insects, much bigger than we have today because the climate was quite different. And then the Cenozoic sees an enormous change. So that massive extinction of the dinosaurs created, in time, a huge array of possible niches for more things to grow into. And so the angiosperms, the real flowering plants, started to appear, which again allowed insects and birds to feed upon them and mammals to feed upon them, because the angiosperms produce fruit. So all of a sudden there's an abundance of food, and suddenly we get an abundance of mammals, birds, insects, and obviously we start to appear, or our ancestors start to appear. So the Cenozoic's a major period of flourishing of life and diversity of life on the planet. There's also been a number of extinction events. I thought I'd do them now rather than at the end. So across this period of time, there's been 5 major events. And many people now argue we're living in the 6th, and we are, of course, believed to be creating the 6th extinction event, which for the good of the planet will probably mean the extinction of us. So there's an Ordovician extinction, where 60% of the marine invertebrates die. So most life at this point in time is in the oceans. So I think all life is in the ocean. So 60% of it was lost. Then in the Devonian, most life on Earth is still in the oceans. There's stuff on land now, but this wipes out some of those really classic fossil formers, the reef builders, the trilobites, the brachiopods that we see in very commonly in fossils. In the Permian, there's another massive extinction event which wiped out almost all life on the planet. 90% of the marine species. 83% of all genera, or the genus on the planet, gone. The Triassic sees another 50% loss. This is when the dinosaurs appear. So dinosaurs flourish out of an extinction event. And then, of course, the last one was the Cretaceous, where the dinosaurs disappear, and we now see the flourishing of new species following that, although we're now, as I say, moving into a new extinction event. Extinction events are actually, a good thing for the planet in many ways, because they create opportunities for new species to appear and more diversity to arise. It's not necessarily a negative thing, but negative for the time being, negative if you're alive and you stop being alive. But from the planet's point of view, it's just a natural cycle that produces new life forms and regenerates the planet and its ecosystems. Anyway, so that's the first part. We'll go into the evidence for this in the next section.